So it got officially announced a couple of days ago that UFC International Fight Week is taking place in July. So I thought I'd build the best possible card that we can get. Knowing full well that in 2 weeks the UFC are going to release the worst card you've ever seen, so fuck it. Let's just get straight into it. Now, this is for the most part what I would do, but also a little bit of what I think the UFC is going to do. And you can see that here in the main event, as I've got Alexander Volkanovski versus Gene Silva. Now, I would not do this, but we know the UFC are going to do this. You know, Gene Silva's come out a couple of days ago. He said he's fighting for the title next, and he's signing the contract this weekend. And I can just 100% see it happening, you know. Volk's a big enough name to headline International Fight Week. We've seen him do it one time before, I think. And this is a massive fight, as much as a lot of people don't want to see it, including me. At least not until Gene wins at least one more fight. It is a big fight. It would sell. It would get hyped. It would get hyped for this card. And I just feel like the UFC are going to do it. You know, Lerone and Movsar are obviously fighting tomorrow. And I don't think the UFC want the winner of that fight for the title next. I think they're going to make the winner of that wait for the winner of this, which is dumb, but it is something they would do as well. And yeah, this is what I think we're going to get for the main event. Now, for the rest of the card, this is what I would do, not what I think the UFC is going to do. So outside of this, all this is my idea, you know. Obviously, I would never do some horrific matchmaking like this. But we go to the co-main event. Now, this shouldn't be for the BMF title, kind of leaked it was going to be. But we need Arman versus Charles in a 5-rounder, because the first fight was only 3 rounds, for the number 1 contenders. And the winner can fight Ilya or Gaethje, I guess, but that's not happening. This was a sick fight the first time around, and now I think they've both made significant improvements. The winner of this is obviously the number 1 contender, very clearly. I think you then do, Max versus BSD or Paddy versus BSD. I still think Benoit's 2 fights away from fighting for the title anyway, so I don't think it really matters. But you do this next. Winner fights Ilya. Sick fight, 5 rounds. This is big. I know usually International Fight Week has a couple of title fights, but I think this is bigger than the majority of title fights that the UFC can make right now. At least that would be on this card. Maybe Merab versus Yan, but I think that should headline the next card after International Fight Week in August. Because I think that's a big enough fight to headline on its own. You know, the trilogy. Last fight was a banger. Co-main event, you could put like a Dricus fight or something. And I think this is the perfect co-main event for this card. So it's an International Fight Week, you know. They like getting guys from around the world to fight on it. You know, Brazilian versus, Armenian, Russian. I can't remember what Armen is, but this would be a sick fight, co-main event. Next fight, Kevin Vallejos versus Yair Rodriguez. Now, I don't know where the fuck Yair's been for the last, year now, since he last fought. But he needs to come back for this card. He needs to come back to fight Kev. Get Kev out of the Apex now. He had 4 UFC fights and they've all been in the Apex. Get him on the main card of a pay-per-view. And get him a big name. If he beats Yair, he's 1 away from a title shot. And I do think he would beat Yair. I think he'd struggle early with the kicks. I think it would go similar to how the Giga fight went. You know, it would take Kev like a few minutes to find his range. Yair would be throwing the kicks out. I could see Yair trying to get the grappling going in this fight. Kev, I think he'd be able to stuff the takedowns, shuck him off, keep it standing on the feet. And I think in round 2 or 3, he'd land a big shot, overhand right or something, rock Yair and put him away. And I need to see it. I need to see Yair out cold. We've not seen it yet. We've only seen him submitted recently, which was a great hate watch, but we need another one, you know. I wasn't that big of a hater back then. Now I'm a massive hater. I need to see him dead. And especially if it's by Kev, because he's one of my favourite guys in the sport right now. This is the next fight. Big fight, title eliminator. And yeah, this card so far, this is already better than what the UFC is going to give us. I guarantee it. We're going to get Kai Kara-France in his returns to co-main to Yan versus Merab in the main event or something like that. That's what they're going to do. But in this next fight, we got another former champ, which I guess yeah, technically is, but not really. We got Leon versus Medic. Now, there was rumors that they were going to go to, I think it's Serbia, that Medic is from, and then this was going to headline. Obviously, we know they're not doing that anymore, unless it's later on in the year, I guess, but I don't think they're going to go there. Because that would mean they have to actually go somewhere other than Vegas, London, and Paris, and Abu Dhabi. So I think they're just going to do this on the main card of a pay-per-view. Obviously, big name Leon, former champ, versus Medic, who's on a good win streak right now. Just slimed out Jeff Neal in a minute. And I think this is a good fight. I think Leon, I'd probably pick Leon to win. And before everyone says it's bias, no, Medic does suck. It's just, can Leon survive the first 2 minutes? If he does, he wins this fight. The skill difference is insane. Medic got slapped by Soriano a year ago. He isn't actually good. He's just on a good win streak. Like the three guys he beat, Gilbert Urbina, is that his name? He knocked him out in a minute and still somehow got dropped in that fight. Then he beat Muslim Salikov, who's 47 years old, and then he beat Jeff Neal, who's completely washed. Who kind of you could see the difference, even between the Pratis fight. Jeff Neal ain't the same anymore. Obviously, that could be the same for Leon. He could be completely washed, but I still think a washed Leon's good enough to beat Medic, who just never has been good. Even like fucking who is it? Orobai walking him down and submitting him in his debut on a week's notice. Like Medic isn't good. It's just if you can survive the first 2 minutes against him, which I think Leon would be able to. I think he'd be able to get a hold of him, tire him out, and then he'd easily win from then on. But yeah, last fight to open up, well, for the main card, I got a couple prelims as well. Now this fight does depend on a couple of results from in the next couple cards, but I got Dan Hooker versus Chris Duncan. I think Chris Duncan's going to beat Moicano. I think he's going to beat him pretty easily. I don't think he's going to take much damage, and then you can turn him around for this card, and this would be a banger to open up the card. You know, I think Dan's ranked number 7, number 8. If Duncan wins, they're probably around 10 to 12 range. And this is a sick fight. I'd pick Duncan again. I think he could get the grappling going. But either way, you know it's going to be a war, you know. If you go through their last fights, Duncan, he had that fight with Terrence McKinney. Crazy fight. It only lasted like 2.5 minutes. They both dropped each other. And then Duncan found the sub. Before that, he fought Rebecca. Arguably fight of the year. I think it was at least top 3. Before that, he fought, I can't even remember. Oh, Vucencic, who's literally, I think, about to fight right now when I'm recording this in Cage Warriors. Dropped him in the first round, submitted him in the second round. He's on a good win streak. The only person who's beat him in the UFC is Manuel Torres. I've also got on this card. Just kind of spoil that right now. But that's the only person who's beat him in the UFC. Dan's last few fights, obviously, he lost to BSD and Arman. I think this would go kind of similar to that. Well, kind of similar to the BSD one. I think he'd be a bit of a war on the feet to start off with. I think Duncan would try and, like... I don't think Duncan would shoot immediately and just try to take him down, even though he probably should. I do think he would try to stand and bang for a bit. Have a little bit of success, but then eventually he'll get the takedowns going. I think he'd find a finish in round 2. But either way, you know this is going to be a war. You know it's going to be violent, and someone's probably getting a finish. So this should be the main card, I think. Dan versus Duncan, Leon Medic, Yair versus Kev, Arman Charles, and then Volt. I don't think this should be the fight, but I think it's going to be the fight. And I think if you had the rest of this card, I don't think people would be that mad, because that is a bit of a banger of a main card. And we go to the prelims. I got 2 more fights here. I did kind of just spoil kind of one of them, but I got Manuel Torres versus Ziam. I think these guys are number 14 and number 15, so it makes sense. Obviously, Torres was supposed to fight in April, but had to pull out, which is obviously it's a 3 months difference. He was supposed to fight in April. This card's in July, but I do think he'd be able to turn around and fight in July. That's just a serious injury. It could have been, and I just didn't see it. I'm not sure, but this is a sick fight. Ziam obviously gets a shot at the rankings. I know it's only 1 spot up, but I think if he wins this, then he goes to fight like a Gamrot or something. A Dariush if he somehow beats Sal Killed, but I don't think that would happen. And as for Torres, same thing. I think the winner of this gets the biggest shot at the rankings. It'll be a sick fight. 2 of the best young guys in the division right now. But I do think Torres is kind of overrated. Like, he did get slimed out by Bahamondes a year ago, and just everyone kind of forgets about that. But either way, this would be a cool fight. I would be rooting for Torres just because Ziam's... I'm not even going to get into that. You know why if you know me. But I'd make this fight. I think it's a sick fight. Headliner of the prelims as well. It's probably going to be a finish. Get everyone hyped before the main card, and yeah, that's it. One more fight on the prelims again. We've got Jose Delgado versus William Gomes. And this is a banger fight outside the featherweight rankings. Delgado just beat Philly last weekend. Gomes is... I don't know where he is. I think he fought in September and just hasn't fought since. I made this fight on my every fight to make after Vallejo's versus Emmett card. I also made the Yair versus Emmett. Yair versus fucking Kev matchup. I think both of them should be on this card. I think it's a good realistic turnaround for the 2 of them. Obviously, it'd be about 4 months. Neither of them took that much damage. Delgado took a little bit, but I do think he'll want to turn around quickly, you know. It was only a 5-month turnaround after that Wood fight where he did take quite a bit of damage as well. So I do think he'd want to fight on this card. He fought on the last International Fight Week card and got a first-round knockout, you know. So I do think they'd happily have him on the prelims again. This would be a sick fight. I think he called out Gomes last year after he beat Harder Emil. Obviously, he's then gone and fought Woods and Philly. Gomes has gone and fought that Polish guy whose name I don't know. And yeah, I think this would be a good fight outside the rankings. I'd pick Delgado, but you know it's going to be a banger either way. Same as all these fights, you know. For this card, I kind of just thought, what would be an entertaining fight? Obviously, Leon has a bit of a potential for it to not be that great, but Either way, it'd probably be a good fight. I'd be excited for it. And yeah, those are all the fights I think we should have on International Fight Week. We got UFC London tomorrow. Make sure you go follow my TikTok as well at Dylan MMA. I'm about to post on there. And yeah, thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe.